Why the 7 habits still matter in 2025. Ladies and gentlemen, we stand at a remarkable crossroads in human history. We carry supercomputers in our pockets. We can connect with anyone, anywhere instantly. Artificial intelligence writes our emails, drives our cars, and answers our questions. The world has changed more in the past decade than in the previous century. And yet, we are struggling. We're more connected than ever, but lonelier. We have access to infinite information, but less wisdom. We can accomplish tasks at lightning speed, but find ourselves unable to focus for 10 minutes. We've optimized everything except what matters most: our character, our relationships, our contribution to the world. This is precisely why the 7 habits matter more now than ever before. The crisis of the quick fix. We live in an age of shortcuts. Want to lose weight? There's a pill for that. Want to learn a language? An app promises fluency in 3 weeks. Want success? Follow these 5 easy hacks. We've been seduced by the personality ethic, the belief that we can achieve meaningful results through technique, through strategy, through the right image or the right words, without doing the deep, difficult work of character development. But here's the truth that doesn't change with technology. There are no shortcuts to excellence. There are no hacks to integrity. You cannot cheat the harvest. The law of the farm still applies, whether we're farming corn or cultivating our own character. Principle 1. Be proactive. In 2025, we face an unprecedented assault on our agency. Algorithms decide what we see. Push notifications demand our attention. Social media platforms are engineered to be addictive. It's easier than ever to live reactively, to be a product of our conditions, our conditioning, our circumstances. But between stimulus and response, there is still a space. In that space lies our power to choose. That space hasn't shrunk because of technology. If anything, it's become more critical. When the world is constantly trying to hijack your attention and manipulate your behavior, being proactive isn't just important. It's an act of radical freedom. Your responsibility, your ability to choose your response, is still the most powerful force in your life. Not what happens to you, but how you choose to respond to what happens to you. This hasn't changed. This will never change. Principle 2. Begin with the end in mind. We're busier than ever. We're more productive than ever. And yet, ask yourself, productive toward what? We climb the ladder of success only to discover it's leaning against the wrong wall. We optimize our lives for metrics that don't matter. Likes, followers, inbox 0, while the things that matter most go neglected. In 2025, with infinite options and constant noise, beginning with the end in mind isn't just helpful. It's essential for survival. If you don't decide what matters, the culture will decide for you. If you don't write your own script, you'll become an actor in someone else's play. What do you want said about you at your funeral? What legacy do you want to leave? These questions feel uncomfortable because they cut through the noise to what's real. But discomfort is not a sign you're on the wrong path. It's a sign you're finally asking the right questions. Principle 3. Put first things first. We have productivity apps, time blocking techniques, and AI assistants to manage our schedules. And yet, we're more overwhelmed than ever. Why? Because we confuse urgent with important. Because we let the tyranny of the urgent crowd out the important, but not urgent. The very things that would transform our lives if we gave them consistent attention. Discipline in 2025 isn't about doing more. It's about doing what matters. It's about the courage to say no to good things so you can say yes to the best things. It's about executing around your priorities, rather than your priorities getting lost in execution. The question isn't, how can I fit this in? The question is, what am I willing to give up to make room for what matters most? The private victory enables the public victory. Before you can effectively work with others, you must first work on yourself. Before you can keep commitments to others, you must learn to keep commitments to yourself. Before you can be trusted, you must become trustworthy. These first 3 habits, being proactive, beginning with the end in mind, and putting first things first, represent the private victory. And in a world obsessed with external validation, with likes and shares and appearances, the private victory has never been more countercultural or more necessary. You cannot fake character. You cannot outsource integrity. These are built in the private moments when no one is watching, when you choose to do the right thing because it's right, not because it's easy or rewarding. Principle 4. Think win. Win in 2025. We're drowning in zero-sum thinking, political polarization, cancel culture, social media algorithms that reward outrage and division. We've forgotten that there's a third option beyond win-lose and lose-win. We've forgotten that abundance is possible. Win-win isn't about being nice. It's not about compromise where everybody loses a little. It's about creating solutions where everybody wins, genuinely wins. It requires courage and consideration. Courage to stand up for what you need, and consideration to genuinely understand what others need. This mindset matters more now because our problems are more interconnected. Climate change, artificial intelligence, economic inequality. These aren't problems any one person or nation can solve alone. We need win-win solutions or everyone loses. Principle 5: seek first to understand, then to be understood. We've never had more ways to communicate and never understood each other less. We broadcast instead of converse. We wait for our turn to talk instead of listening. We engage in empathy theater while checking our phones. In a world of hot takes and tribal thinking, genuinely seeking to understand another person's perspective is revolutionary. Not listening to respond, not listening to win the argument, listening to truly understand, to see the world through someone else's eyes, to feel what they feel. This is hard work. It requires patience. It requires you to set aside your own autobiography, your own frame of reference, and enter theirs. But it's the only way to build real connection. It's the only way to solve real problems. Principle 6: Synergize. 1 + 1 can equal 3 or more. But only if we value differences rather than tolerate them. Only if we see different perspectives not as threats but as opportunities. In 2025, with AI doing more routine work, the uniquely human capacity to create synergy, to generate solutions that neither party could have created alone, becomes more valuable, not less. The problems we face are too complex for any single perspective. We need diverse minds working together, creating third alternatives that transcend either or thinking. But synergy doesn't happen automatically. It requires security in yourself, openness to others, and a spirit of adventure. It requires moving beyond compromise to transformation. Principle 7: sharpen the saw. We're living in the age of burnout. We glorify the grind. We wear exhaustion as a badge of honor. We optimize for productivity while our physical health, mental health, relationships, and sense of meaning deteriorate. Sharpening the saw, renewing yourself in the physical, mental, social, emotional, and spiritual dimensions, isn't selfish. It's essential. You can't give what you don't have. You can't sustain high performance without renewal. In 2025, when the pace of change is accelerating and the demands on our time are multiplying, renewal isn't a luxury. It's the foundation of sustainable effectiveness. The timeless nature of principles. Technology changes, culture changes, the tools we use and the problems we face evolve. But principles don't change. Principles are like gravity. You can ignore them, but you can't avoid their consequences. The 7 habits aren't trendy because they're not based on trends. They're based on principles that have governed human effectiveness for millennia: responsibility, vision, integrity, mutual benefit, understanding, cooperation, renewal. These principles worked in ancient Athens and medieval Europe. They worked in the Industrial Revolution. They work now in the digital age. They'll work in whatever comes next because they're rooted in fundamental truths about human nature and human potential. From knowledge to wisdom to action. But here's what matters most: knowing these principles isn't enough. Understanding them intellectually doesn't change anything. What changes your life is the daily, disciplined practice of these habits. A habit is the intersection of knowledge, skill, and desire. You need to know what to do and why. You need to develop the ability to do it. And you need to want to do it. All 3 are necessary. This takes time. This takes patience. This takes consistent effort when you don't feel like it, when no one's watching, when the results aren't immediate. This is the work. But this is also how you become the person you're capable of becoming. Not through a program or a hack or a shortcut. Through the patient, persistent development of character-based habits that compound over time. The choice before us: we have a choice. We can continue to chase the latest productivity app, the newest life hack, the quickest fix. We can optimize for appearances while neglecting substance. We can stay busy while drifting further from what matters. Or we can do something different. We can build our lives on principles that don't change. We can develop habits that create lasting effectiveness. We can become people of character who make meaningful contributions. The world doesn't need more people who are efficient at the wrong things. It needs people who know who they are, what they stand for, and where they're going. It needs people who can work with others to create real solutions. It needs people who constantly renew themselves so they can keep contributing. The 7 habits matter in 2025 for the same reason they've always mattered, because they work. Not in the sense of quick results or easy answers. They work in the sense that they align your life with principles that govern success, effectiveness, and fulfillment. The question isn't whether these habits are still relevant. The question is whether you'll have the courage and discipline to practice them. So I leave you with this. You are not a victim of your circumstances. You are not at the mercy of algorithms or culture or the pace of change. You have the power to choose. You have the ability to decide who you will become and what you will contribute. Between stimulus and response, there is always that space, and in that space, you have the power to shape your destiny. The habits are simple, but not easy. The principles are clear, but not convenient. The path is straightforward, but not smooth. It will require more of you than you think you have to give. It will test you when you're tired, when you're discouraged, when no one else notices your effort. But here's what I know: every great thing that has ever been accomplished in this world has been accomplished by people who decided to live by principle rather than pressure, by vision rather than circumstance, by contribution rather than consumption. And that opportunity is yours today, right now, in this moment. The question is not whether the 7 habits still matter. The question is, will you matter? Will your life count for something? Will you look back years from now and know that you became the person you were capable of becoming? That you made the difference you were capable of making? You don't need to be perfect. You need to begin. Choose one habit, practice it, let it take root in your life. Then add another. Small, consistent steps in the right direction create momentum. And momentum, over time, creates transformation. The journey of 1,000 miles begins with a single step, but you have to take that step. No one can do it for you. No app, no system, no shortcut can substitute for your decision to live a principle-centered life. So start today. Start now. Be proactive. Begin with the end in mind. Put first things first, and watch as your life, and through your life, the lives of those around you, begins to change. Because in the end, the 7 habits don't just matter for what they help you accomplish. They matter for who they help you become. And becoming a person of character, integrity, and contribution, that's a victory worth pursuing. Thank you, and may you find the courage to live the life you're capable of living.